You're in the central city. What are your thoughts?
Oh, well, I've had a lot of people coming to me saying that they've seen an increase in homelessness and the antisocial behaviour sitting on the pavement and so on. And so it is real. And I think it's really disingenuous to suggest that it's not. And it's not just Christchurch, because this is something that's happening across the board. As the Labor Party, we got criticised for our emergency housing program, the amount of money that was being spent on it. And this government has, shouted from the rooftops that they've reduced it significantly. And some of them have gone into Kaungaora housing, others into private rentals, but there's about 20% where we don't know where they are. And I think we're finally finding out that they're actually just being pushed out into precarious housing situations, whether that's someone's garage or whether it's in a tent in a park or down in a van at the beach. Homelessness is on the rise, and you're going to expect that.
Are you suggesting it's on the rise because of the current policies of this current government, Duncan?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And this government has said it's going to build houses, but it's built exactly zero. The only houses that it has built are houses that were started under the Labor government, and it has cancelled thousands of houses, hundreds of housing projects across the city and across the country, including in Christchurch. We can go to sites and see vacant land waiting to be built on, and this government has said, we want Kaungaora to be more financially sustainable, so we're going to stop these projects. And you can't live on a vacant land, not unless you've got a tent.
Hamish, what Duncan is saying is correct, though, isn't it, that some projects have been stopped by the government when it comes to Kaungaora housing and on previously private land?
Look, I think really simplistic view of our community housing sector. Yes, the government can build houses. The other way we can actually get houses is through community housing providers. And we want to make sure that we're backing our community housing providers. And we have announced over $140 million to fund 1,500 new social housing places. Now, the thing is, we don't need to necessarily build them. They can be done by community housing providers. The community housing providers know what the community actually needs and actually can provide it. So it's really disingenuous to Duncan to kind of go on the way that he did. There is always going to be fluctuations in the amount of people homeless for various reasons. But what we do say is, if anybody needs housing, that they should go and see MSD to make sure that they can get assistance to them.
Duncan, for your comment?
Absolutely not, because the fact of the matter is that there have been no houses built. They have not yet. So they've said there's a pot of money there. Now, I've been asked a question, so I'll answer it. There is a pot of money there, but we're yet to see any houses built. We built 12,000. I'll say one other thing. In terms of the fatuous suggestion that go into MSD and you'll get a house, it's absolute rubbish. I had a guy sleeping in a car with a broken back, and he's just out of hospital. He went to MSD and he was moved along. He wasn't even recognised as needing a house. It's absolutely false. And in this office, in Christchurch Central, we see people time and again seeking emergency housing and told that they're not in enough need. And if you're sleeping in a car and you're not in enough need, to suggest that emergency housing is available is just outright false.
So I want to bring you up to that then. So where did this guy then eventually find a place to stay then, Duncan?
We worked with him. He's found a place in a boarding house, but that's not so emergency housing. He was over Christmas. He was sleeping in his car for 3 weeks whilst we tried to find him somewhere. Ultimately, a room popped up in a boarding house, and we managed to get him in there. But that's me, my office, my people helping him find a room, not MSD doing their job and giving him somewhere to sleep whilst room came up.
So what do we do about the situation then, Hamish?
Slam MSD like that. We actually have a really good working relationship with MSD, and when we've had constituents come in with housing issues, we've been able to reach out to MSD to make sure that housing is available. Of course, some people do want to change houses or maybe kind of move locations. That can be a little bit more challenging. But we have actually been really successful with MSD to kind of make sure that people have housing. When I first came in MP probably 17 months ago, we had a huge number of people coming through the door seeking emergency housing, and we have seen that really tail off over that time.
Yeah,
So
well, certainly people don't. Maybe your constituents are coming to me because I'm getting a steady stream, and that one example is just the tip of the iceberg.
So how do we fix this problem to reduce what's being described as, what was it, 50 or 60 more homeless people across Christchurch then? Hamish, if that is the case, and let's say that is, what do we do about it?
Look, I think it is really important that we have emergency housing. Yes, we want to reduce the number of people in emergency housing, and I think we've done a really good job of moving a lot of people that were in, including over 2,000 children, out of emergency housing into social housing. So it is important that we move people on from emergency housing. Living in motels is not suitable for families. It's not suitable to bring up children. So it is very important that we move them onto social housing. So we are working with community housing providers to actually make sure that we have social housing available for people that need it.
The problem that I've experienced, well, not personally experienced, but what I've been reporting on over the last few weeks is the Otatahi Housing Trust, and I don't want to bag them because by all accounts they do a good job of what they've got with the clientele that they have to deal with. But Duncan, what has become abundantly clear is that you have drug addicts, gang members, those with mental health issues, all being bundled together in these housing complexes, and then it ends in disaster. There's got to be a better way to do this.
Yeah, look, in the inner city, I take the time on occasion to stop and talk to people who are, in the city, making a bit of a nuisance of themselves. And when you actually talk to them and say, well, why are you here? A lot of them will identify the kind of problems you've signalled. Now, I do think that finding a house is only one step in this problem. We do need better mental health support. I see the press is today reporting that the emergency department's being overwhelmed with mental health responses. And we do need, social and wider supports. So absolutely, there does have to be a better way. One thing we need, because of course, one of the things I've experienced is when social houses go up, sometimes the neighbours aren't that excited. Now, the fact is we do need to spread our social housing across the city in small, modest developments, and we have to have them being part of a community. And what we can't have is the kind of NIMBYism where someone says, oh, no, I don't want those kinds of people living next to me. Because if that happens, what we end up with is 60 units on a section, and we know that that's not ideal. And I know some of those new developments, whether it be Campbell or Otatahi Housing Trust, are not ideal. We've got to spread them out.
I want to move on to local body politics. A good favourite of mine, the ACT Party, of course, this week said it wants local candidates to give some of those other candidates a run for their money. Hamish, to you on this, I mean, this is nothing new, is it really, when it comes to local government issues, when you've got People's Choice, you've got independent citizens or whatever they call themselves, and now possibly the ACT Party getting back into local government. Your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of people that are politically active at local level probably do have probably are politically active at the more global level, maybe lean left or right, and I think it's probably clear what we see. I don't think kind of voting along party blocks is overly helpful at the council level. But that's up to councillors and the way they run their operation. So up to them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Duncan. I've always thought that when you're serving the community on a local governance level or government level, it really should be what you think as opposed to voting on party lines. But then again, people vote for parties to go into the council, don't they?
To an extent. I think in local body politics, people vote on the basis of the value set that people bring to the job, who they are and what values they have. And if you say I'm green aligned, then we know what your values are. If you say I'm ACT aligned, we know what your values are. In terms of the questions that crop up, I think they are a little more nuanced and a little more community and local focused. So you might be voting in a different way than perhaps you would at national level. But using a party vehicle to signal where your value lies on particular questions is very useful. I'm very excited about the ACT Party because in Christchurch Central, I think they've got 8% of the vote in Ilam. And so I don't think they're going to be a significant threat if they clean up with 8% of the vote in the local body elections.
Has Labor thought about putting anybody up for mayoral candidacy yet, Duncan? You'd know, wouldn't you?
Oh, I'm too busy with this job. I'm not available. Sorry, Chris.
wasn't meaning you. But anyway, nice try. Look, just funny, guys. I want to talk about...
I think that's kind of a self-inflated opinion there.
Oh, look, Hallsville Junction Road, this may bore some people, but it's really important because I think it goes to a wider issue here. You've got council staff that are forcing poor old, what's his name? Hallsville councillor Andre Moore to put in a official Information Act request to get information about his own ward. I mean, this is disgraceful, Duncan. This goes to the heart of the issue where you've got council staff that think they're beyond reproach.
Yeah, well, there is a bit of a narrative there, but I absolutely agree that transparency is really important. And that one of the problems we have in government and local government, and I'm talking not just the MPs and councillors, but more broadly, is a sense that unless you're entitled to it under the Official Information Act, you're not going to get it. Whereas, in fact, we should have a culture which is a lot more open and say, oh, that's a very reasonable question. I'll dig that out for you, as long as it doesn't take too long. And it doesn't sound like the questions being asked are particularly onerous, but that sense of, oh, no, you're not unless you're entitled to it, and there's this procedure. No, we should have a more open and free and frank, and a local councillor, whatever colour they are, should have ready access to information about what the local bureaucrats are doing in their ward.
They should, shouldn't they, Hamish? But it feels like they're not. Another example in Hallsville again, council staff are now going back to, I think, one of the community boards, according to the local councillor there, for retrospective authority or approval of an intersection that they changed without proper delegation. I mean, this is a serious governance issue that offers that all too easily gets swept under the carpet.
Yes, look, I'm not over the details of that later story that you just mentioned,
Sure.
but I think Phil was on your show yesterday and said that he's going to look into it. But I think Duncan's right. We need to have kind of transparency and information that people can easily access, so that we can get to the bottom of some of these things.
Yeah, we should. Just finally, guys, weekend. It's a busy weekend in Christchurch. Always looking forward to Polyfest. Duncan, what are you up to this weekend?
Yeah, I'll be at Polyfest, so that'll be a bit of fun. And tonight I'm off to half of a cathedral. So there's an art exhibition in the wreckage of the cathedral. I'll be popping down to that. So I look forward to seeing what that's about.
And Hamish?
Well, I'm off to the cathedral as well tonight, so I'll see you there, Duncan. Park run in the morning, a great event in Hagley Park. Look, I know you're excited, Duncan.
Blibin Park Run. I get those photos the next day and I feel very lazy. They're quite inspiring, but I still haven't had the what's the word I'm looking for? Motivation to get along. That's every Saturday morning, isn't it?
Every Saturday morning.
Transformative cult-like experience.
Yes, it's sort of quite cultish in a way, but I mean that in a positive way. Everyone looks like they're having a good time despite the fact they've been for a run, so I'm going to try that. We're out of time. The two doctors, it's good to have you in the house. Have a good weekend.
See you later. Thank you.